This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
They come to the 8 ball, and California Chrome is absolutely sensational. California Chrome shines bright in the Kentucky Derby.
Will take charges surging, and it's a photo finish. It's too close to call.
African Story wins the Dubai World Cup.
Macho Man!
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Racing Across America. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining us this morning. Coming up a little later on Wednesday means a visit from Jeremy Plonk, HorsePlayerNow.com and Night School. We'll do a little with Jeremy. Typically, obviously, 3-year-olds early in the year with his countdown to the crown, and then we'll look at 3-year-old stakes as the year goes along as well. Nothing really on the 3-year-old picture this past weekend, though, so I thought it was a good time because he does the countdown to the crown column, and really, with the 2-year-old racing gearing up, he's got to be kind of moving in the direction of starting to check off some 2-year-olds to focus on for his first countdown to the crown package that'll come up at the end of the year or the beginning of next. And so I thought we'd talk a little 2-year-olds and see what he thought of what we've seen so far this summer from the 2-year-old scene, and then move on and getting back to the 3-year-olds. Get some of Jeremy's thoughts on Pennsylvania Derby and the Cotillion on the weekend as well. So that's going to be the discussion with Jeremy. A little bit later on, Rachel McLaughlin from Indiana Grand Racing. Talk a little bit about a couple of stakes. I like Indiana Grand because they have these midweek stakes. And we'll talk a little bit about the 2 stakes they ran last Wednesday. Just kind of quickly recap those. Get some of her thoughts on racing this afternoon at Indiana Grand as well. All of that coming up on this Wednesday edition of Racing Across America. Talked a little bit about it on the Handicappers Report earlier. And just, you know, kind of some sad news if you're a student of the racing game and history of racing and whatnot. The news that came out of Massachusetts yesterday was disappointing. For the last few months, we've kind of been had our ear to the ground as far as Massachusetts and the chase for a casino in the Boston area. There were 2, it came down to 2 bidders eventually, one of those being Suffolk Downs. The folks at Suffolk pretty much made it clear that without the casino, racing would no longer go on at Suffolk Downs. The decision was made by the Massachusetts Gaming Commission yesterday. They voted 3-1 to award the sole Boston area casino license to Wynn Resorts instead of Mohegan Sun, which was the partner with Suffolk Downs. The folks at Suffolk Downs subsequently came out and confirmed that essentially racing will be over at the end of this season at Suffolk. And again, it's sad. We talked a little bit about it on the Handicappers Report over the past year. We've seen Hollywood Park go out, now Suffolk Downs, a couple of racetracks that really played into the history of American racing. And if you're new to the game, you may not realize how important Suffolk was. And we talked about this earlier as well, the Mass Cap with some big names, Skipaway and Cigar and names like that. The Mass Cap at Suffolk Downs was really one of the premier races on the schedule for the handicap division for years and years. And you kind of got the feeling that Suffolk was moving in the wrong direction when the Mass Cap started to disappear a little bit from prominence and then in total. And there was the hope that when this new group bought the racetrack, maybe they would revive things, and they were certainly talking that way. But at the same time, you certainly had the feeling they were hoping to get slots or a casino involved, and then that became apparent really within the past year or so that was their game plan. And without a casino, things were looking bleak for Suffolk Downs. The decision, again, came out yesterday and went against Suffolk Downs. It will be Wynn Resorts that will be putting up the casino. Chip Tuttle, the chief operating officer, was quoted as saying, "We are extremely disappointed as this action is likely to cost the Commonwealth thousands of jobs, small businesses. We will be meeting with employees and horsemen over the next several days to talk about how we will wind down racing operations as a 79-year legacy of thoroughbred racing in Massachusetts will be coming to an end, resulting in unemployment and uncertainty for many hardworking people." Linked on Equidaily to a number of stories that echo those sentiments, including editorial, I believe from the Boston Herald, that said essentially, well, it's progress perhaps, but it's awfully sad, and I have to agree with that. The president of the New England chapter of the HBPA, the Horsemen's Benevolent and Protective Association, quoted as saying, now our entire industry, which provided 1,500 direct and indirect jobs in the Commonwealth with an annual impact of $116 million, has been shut down. And so I said earlier, you can look perhaps for the silver lining. The immediate reaction is how sad it is, but with slots money, there have been a number of tracks that have opened over the past 10 years. We probably have a little too much racing given the horse population, which has decreased. So maybe there's a silver lining here, but just in the immediacy, losing a track like Hollywood and a track like Suffolk that have so much history and are in, really in metropolitan areas. Overall, even with the silver lining, I wonder how good it is for the racing game. But you can at least perhaps look at that silver lining. But again, in the immediate days, months to come, a lot of folks are going to be losing jobs, and that's going to be certainly the immediate and unfortunate outcome. As I say, I've linked to some stories excuse me, and some editorials on Equidaily, including Nesson put out, the New England News Channel put out a video, a little piece. They covered the closing, and they talked to some folks at Suffolk. They talked to some neighbors, and you could see kind of the sadness that enveloped the racing community and the neighbors and fans of Suffolk Downs with the decision yesterday. Unfortunate, but that's the situation. And I said earlier, and I was talking to Brian Nadeau during the commercial break earlier, I suppose the potential is there for a white knight to come in and save the day. I think it's extremely unlikely, however. But I was kind of surprised that there was no discussion in any of the articles I read. Now, maybe that's just, we're less than 24 hours out. As we play out, maybe it'll get that way. But if you go back a few years ago, a couple of years, to when Monmouth was in a little bit of trouble, the Horsemen kind of got together, and there was a couple of people who jumped in and made noise about buying the track. You would think there would at least be a little bit of discussion like that. Can Suffolk be saved in some fashion? But as I say, that's a long shot, because the group that owns Suffolk at this point has been losing money on the track. They've clearly been hoping slots or a casino would come in and provide them with the financial support that I think they were actually aiming for. So for somebody to come in out of the blue and just pull up and save Suffolk as a racing operation, a long shot, but I will be interested to see if over the next day or two or a week we don't hear at least something about the potential of somebody looking at the track. We'll see. Horse we looked at earlier this week, or the end of last week, Atreides, the nice runner from Stone Street, and Marty Wolfson, who has been racing down in Florida for the first 3 starts of the career, a 3-year-old undefeated with an incredible win by 17.5 lengths in the Monarchos Stakes just recently down at Gulfstream. That's the race we looked at. This is really a potentially very, very good 3-year-old getting a late start on the scene. 3 races, 3 triple-digit Beyer figures, puts this horse in rarefied air. Trainer Marty Wolfson has said this horse is likely to start next in the Indiana Derby at Indiana Downs on October 4th. The potential was for the horse to come up to Belmont and run in the Grade 2 Kelso on September 27th, but Marty Wolfson has said he likes the harder track surface at Indiana. He thinks the surface at Belmont can be a little bit slow at times, so the decision was really made more on the surface of Indiana as compared to Belmont, according to Marty Wolfson. So that's the situation there with our Atreides. In the 4th career start, we'll now be looking for an October 4th start in the Indiana Derby. Going to be really fun to keep our eyes on this horse. Wolfson has confirmed that Joel Rosario will be aboard Atreides for the Indiana Derby. And again, that's coming up on October 4th. Nice article by Dave Grenig, kind of following up Steve Coburn, who, of course, was a favorite of the folks during the Triple Crown run, and then with his comments right after the Belmont Stakes, maybe fell out of favor a little bit. Grenig caught up with Coburn by phone for the article, and you can, again, pull this up on the Daily Racing Forum site. But Coburn, obviously, re-expresses his regret for the comments, but essentially says, I've given my apologies, let's move on. They quote Art Sherman as saying, that didn't take anything away from the horse's popularity. He still thinks the horse is very popular. Might have hurt Coburn's popularity a little bit, but Art Sherman thinks the horse will still have plenty of support going to the Pennsylvania Derby on the weekend. Coburn says, I was hoping he'd win California Chrome, the Triple Crown for the horse racing industry in all of America. It didn't happen. He got stepped on right out of the gate. We did not know that until later. Saturday's a different race, a different place, and it will be very fun to see how the comeback effort for California Chrome goes, and just what this horse has in store now after the Triple Crown disappointment and a layoff since that fourth place in the Belmont. But he's been training great out at Los Alamitos for Art Sherman. So again, we'll keep our eyes obviously and talk more about the Pennsylvania Derby, including a few minutes with Jeremy Plonk. The other interesting 3-year-old, of course, Shared Belief out on the West Coast also, and he is continuing his preparations for the Awesome Again. Reports are that Shared Belief did work on Tuesday at Golden Gate Fields. Interesting, Jerry Hollendorfer has based the horse up in Northern California, likes the synthetic surface up there. Shared Belief, a 6 furlong workout at Golden Gate in 1:15.20. Hollendorfer said he broke off between two workmates and finished 10 lengths in front of them. He worked real well. He had the fastest work of the day. Hard to believe, 1:15 for 6 furlongs, but that is the word. Hollendorfer has said that Shared Belief, one more workout up at Golden Gate before he ships to Santa Anita next Tuesday or Wednesday for the September 27th Awesome Again. So we'll see Shared Belief once again facing older horses in, about a week and a half or so down at Santa Anita, again, having been based up in Golden Gate. One more workout up there before making the move down to Southern California for his next start. All right, we're going to head to our first break. When we come back, Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com, Night School. We'll talk a little 2-year-olds. We'll talk the Derby and the Cotillion, Pennsylvania Derby and the Cotillion as well. Before we do that, though, pulled up a video last night I took a look at. I thought it might be fun. In light of Stop Charging Maria and the Cotillion, but as Brian Nadeau and I were talking on the Handicappers Reporter there, Brian had heard some quotes from Todd Pletcher saying Stop Charging Maria may bypass the Cotillion in favor of the Beldame. But in one way or the other, Stop Charging Maria will be on track, and we'll be watching her within the next week or two. But I thought it would be interesting to pull up a little profile of Mike Rapoli, owner Mike Rapoli. It's about a minute and a half or so from America's Best Racing. Was shot up at Saratoga, obviously, as this horse. You can see the reactions to the win in the Alabama and whatnot. Some of Mike Rapoli's thoughts on getting into the game and being in the game and how fun it is. So again, it's about a minute and a half with owner Mike Rapoli, who, as I say, Stop Charging Maria, scheduled for the Cotillion. We'll see if that happens this weekend or not, but she, one way or the other, she'll be back in the Beldame, if not the Cotillion. So another week and a half or so, we will see that one. Here are some thoughts, though, from Stop Charging Maria's owner, Mike Rapoli. Again, about a minute and a half, pre-recorded piece. It'll take us into the first break. When we come back, Jeremy Plonk, and we'll talk some 2-year-olds and the Pennsylvania Derby. Stay tuned. All of that after this.
You know, it's been a childhood dream. I mean, I used to go to Aqueduct in Belmont when I was 13, 14-year-old kid. My parents don't know, but sometimes cutting out of school and, you know, with $20 in my pocket and bet $2 a race. And, you know, I was addicted ever since. You know, I always said when I get old, I want to own a racehorse. And 10 years ago, I owned my first racehorse. And to me, it's watching these beautiful animals run down the stretch at 45 miles an hour. And, you know, the whole game, the handicapping, the Saratoga racetrack, the people, the jockeys, the stilts, the competitive nature, you know, winning, losing. It's just so exciting. It's become a family event where from my 88-year-old grandmother to my 9-year-old niece, we have 40, 50 people at the races. And, you know, it's like an added day to the holiday. You know, you have Thanksgiving, you have Christmas, you have Easter, and then you have one of the grade ones or big races. And, you know, and I get to name them after some of my family members. And it's just a lot of fun when you play with everyone, friends and family.
They're coming down to the finish. Stop Charging Maria has won the Alabama.
The goal was to hopefully advertise that she's a big spender and maybe embarrass her to the point where she might think about spending. It's actually done the opposite, where now she thinks she's got a reputation to uphold, and she's got stop spending Maria, stop shopping Maria, stop charging Maria, unlimited budget. It's kind of backfired. Now she also watches the purse, and if the horse wins, she figures out what the horse wins and thinks that's her money to spend.
Face it, most horse racing websites are just too much clutter, too much to navigate through. Next time, log on to CapitalOTB.com. Our newly designed website is easier than ever to use, with all the information the professional horse player needs. CapitalOTB.com.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
I'm Steve Beck.
And I'm Seth Merrill.
Together, we're Loose on the Lead on Capital OTB, Sundays at 10 a.m. Why should they watch, Seth?
Sit down on Sunday, have a bagel, get some great racing conversation.
Cream cheese only, no jelly. Sundays, 10 a.m., Loose on the Lead, Capital OTB.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrill.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning means a visit from Jeremy Plonk, HorsePlayerNow.com and Night School. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Seth. Great to be here.
Happy to have you on board, as always. And as always, on Wednesday morning, we like to recap what went on Night School on Tuesday evening. If folks aren't familiar, Tuesday evening are the Night School classes. You can watch them live, but you can also catch up via the archive. And I thought you had a great topic, a topic that I use a lot in my own handicapping. And I'm going to go back and see if I can get some tips from your experts. But talk a little bit about pedigree handicapping.
Yeah, we looked inside the DNA a little bit last night with Sid Fernando, the bloodstock consultant with Enix.com, and James Scully, one of the better handicappers, I think, around the country, who works for Brisnet.com. Of course, Bris kind of at the fore of all these pedigree stats and trends and applications when it comes to the handicapping process. Sid knows a lot about the bloodstock side of the hows and the why horses are bred the way they are, and James applies it a lot to the next race. So it was an interesting dichotomy on the same topic, and it kind of took you from literally from birth until wager and how to look at the pedigree. So it was a really good cast. I thought Sid Fernando was the first time Night School guest. We've been doing the program for 4 years now. First time we had him on, and I was kicking myself afterwards that we hadn't had him on before because he was a really, really good guest. Explained things well, was entertaining, articulate, great examples that he gave of past horses that people would be familiar with. A lot to learn from that lesson last night. If you go to the Capital OTB website and click on the Night School link, all you have to do is open up the chat. The very first thing in the chat will say to listen to the archive, click here. Boom, you can listen to the 90-minute radio broadcast last night. Steve Vick, Kate and Bradar, myself, and then, of course, our 2 guest panelists last night, Sid Fernando and James Scully. A great show last night.
Yeah, we've had Sid on here a few times in the past, and he is very good when it comes to pedigrees and taking a look at that side of the game. And I've said a number of times before, that's one of the reasons I like 2-year-old racing. Well, turf racing as well, because the 2-year-old racing, if you look into the pedigree with the first-time starters, you're bringing something to the page that's not printed there. So you're bringing some knowledge that the rest of the betting public doesn't have. That's where you can find some value. And similarly, with horses that are maybe making their first start on the turf, you can delve into the pedigree a little bit that way. And that's where you find some value.
Yeah, and last night we had a really good question from one of the chatters and one of the students, and it kind of came full circle as the night went on. He said, what do you look for more, the trainer intent and trainer stats with these unraced horses or the pedigree? And everybody kind of at the beginning said, well, you got to kind of look at both. But as the discussion went on throughout the night, I kind of came to the conclusion and said it towards the end of the show, I feel much more that the value is going to lie with the pedigree play than the trainer play, because everybody is on the trainer angles. They know the trainers who are good with the 2-year-olds. You know Wesley Ward, you know Steve Asmussen, you know Todd Pletcher are going to get bet. But these things that you can dig for yourself and find, like you're talking about, that aren't on the page, but if you dig enough and know enough can find it, that's where the value lies. So to me, what's more important? The ROI and the bottom line. So you may pick more winners playing trainer stats with 2-year-olds, but you're going to make more money playing the pedigree side.
Yeah, I agree completely. Jeremy, before we get into our discussion today, 2-year-olds and looking out the Pennsylvania Derby and the Cotillion, I wanted to touch on, I found this fascinating. I linked over on Equidaily. You have an online column every week, and the most recent one, or the one just before, but a recent one, you took a look at contests and how popular contests have become in the racing game. And I have to admit, I love the contests. I'm a big fan of them. But I have mixed feelings, and you kind of brought up that other side and how contests, and you said some of them are more tied into racing, the racing industry than others, and you had good thoughts about some of them. But some of them are just kind of outside of the racing game and are not really giving back that much. I thought it was a really great take, and I've had the same thoughts and the same kind of mixed emotions myself. I love the contests, but as you said, overall, you got to wonder how good they are for racing.
Well, and some of that is personally rooted. You know, I own my company, as do you with your Equidaily brand, and me with Horse Player now. We've associated with some of the contests over the course of the years, and the further I go, I've disassociated with some of them for that exact reason. And there's a sense of contests can build players. I agree with that. There are ways that you can build players through contests. But for the most part, what they're doing is purging and peeling off existing players. And some of these contests are getting so big and are so frequent that they are just another alternative to the pari-mutuel system. And so they bleed from the pari-mutuel system. Look at the online advertising and the radio advertising you hear for these one-week fantasy football leagues, right? Fantasy football was meant to be you pick your team for the whole year, you sit it out, and you play against your buddies. A one-week fantasy football league is gambling. It's going straight against the bookies. It's going straight against the Vegas sports books. This is the same thing. Some of these contest sites have basically ripped off the concept of the one-week fantasy football league. They go behind the rules of fantasy sports, which are protected legally. But I think when these fantasy sports laws were written, they weren't written with the thought that these were one-week leagues. And so the same kind of thing in the handicapping circuit, that you can sit down at some of these websites and go one-on-one against another gambler and trying to out-handicap one person for the day using the horses, the odds, all of the real-time stats and data from a particular racetrack. And that racetrack, those owners, those horsemen, other bettors, see none of that benefit in the pari-mutuel system. That hurts the game in my estimation, and that's why I wrote about it.
Yeah, interesting. As I said, you had a very interesting take that mirrored some mixed emotions I've had about the contest, because, again, I'm a big fan. I tout them. But I'll point to the other side also, and you mentioned this in your article, as I say, of contests that are tied in. There was the really nice low roller contest at Saratoga this summer every Monday. You played, you went and bought a card, a betting card for $40. You gave them $40. 10 of that went into the prize pool, and then you had to play the other $30 during the day. 5 races, a win, place, and show. That idea, I think, is great. That to me is a win-win.
Absolutely. And again, that indoctrinates people into the pari-mutuel process, everything that goes along with it. And if you're trying to develop new players through this untraditional form of pari-mutuel gambling, that's one way that perhaps you can do it. But to me, there's no reason in horse racing to make a game for betting. We have it.
Yeah.
It's the most beautiful game in all the world, and it's legal. It's the only legal 5-minute gamble you can make outside of Las Vegas, practically, throughout the entire United States. So I'm not sure why the need to kind of feel, and I know the Breeders' Cup got in with DraftKings.com recently, and I hope DraftKings does the right thing. But I think, to me, DraftKings is interested in the Breeders' Cup as a brand because they feel that these are horse players who like to gamble that they can bring over into the football side of things. If DraftKings can bring football people to bet on horse racing, I'll be very surprised. I'll be thrilled with it, but I think that's a pie-in-the-sky hope. I think DraftKings is interested in it because they see gamblers who they can appeal to their side.
Yeah, interesting. And again, online article. I think I still have it linked over on Equidaily if people want to pick that up. All right, let's.
I probably lost 5 advertisers with that column, but I believe in the topic.
Well, and that's the way it works sometimes. Sometimes you just have to make a stand like that. And as I said, I've had those same mixed emotions where I'm looking and thinking, how is this contest really benefiting the racing industry? And I did laugh when you said in the column just what you said now. Why are we making games about, gambling games about an industry that's all about gambling to begin with? We have the gambling, and so it is kind of. But as I say, I think things like that low roller contest, more of those kind of things, I think are fun. Get people in. At the end of the day, even if you haven't won the contest, you got the card that has your money on it, and you can bet some more with that. So there are ways to do it in the racing industry.
And I think the National Handicapping Championship is wonderful. Yeah. All the satellite qualifiers around the country at the various racetracks. You win your local one, you qualify for the Vegas tournament with the NHC. I think that's wonderful, and that's nothing but good for racing. So more like that, but I think there are people trying to piggyback the success of the NHC and trying to get around things.
But it is interesting topic and maybe worth the racing industry taking a closer look. All right, let's shift our attention now. As noted, we'll look at the Pennsylvania Derby and the Cotillion in a few. But I wanted to touch on just get at this point in the year. Summer is waning now, so we've had a chance to see some of the 2-year-olds. We have you on late in the year, and as we go through the Triple Crown, talking about your countdown to the crown. So I'm assuming you're kind of formulating some of the 2-year-olds to keep an eye on as you progress towards the end of the year and start to put together the first countdown to the crown packages. So just wanted to get some of your thoughts, particularly on the leaders on the West Coast and the East Coast. And we'll start things out. The leader right now, Pro Tem 2-year-old leader on the East Coast, is obviously Competitive Edge for Todd Pletcher. Comes out of a maiden special weight win to start the career, and then followed that up winning the Hopeful on September 1st up at Saratoga. We're going to watch the Hopeful win here. It will be number 6 Competitive Edge, winning pretty easily as the 65-cent to $1 favorite. Number 5 I Spent It, the 8-5 second choice, will run second. And Jeremy, just recently the early Vegas Derby odds have come out. I found it interesting. I Spent It 50-1, Competitive Edge 60-1. So in Vegas, I Spent It, the second place finisher here, is actually a shorter price, which I found a little bit interesting. But give us some of your thoughts. The Hopeful, Competitive Edge, I Spent It.
I think the Hopeful is representative of the 2-year-old crop that we're going to see, and we have seen a little bit in recent years, and we'll see more because the decline full crop, there are fewer horses out there now than there were 5, 6, 7 years ago even. The 2008 stock market crash and the breeding crash really is being felt now as we're seeing these crops. So what we have in the Hopeful is a 7-horse field where, 2 of the horses are Gennady Dorochenko, no hopers, that are thrown into the field coming up from Florida that aren't even part of the Saratoga circuit. It's tough to put together a big, deep field of 2-year-olds. People are going to spread out. There's a lot of money for them, and they're going to avoid each other where they can. There's different rates of developments with these horses, but the bottom line is the field sizes are going to be an issue, as we talked about, for the next several years and until the full crop rebounds. And so what you have is Competitive Edge, and I Spent It, 2 very good horses, I think, from quality barns, Pletcher and Tony Dutrow. I think both are well respected, but there's absolutely nothing behind them, and there's almost 15 lengths first to third in the Hopeful. And I kind of think there's going to be that haves and have-nots that we see in 2-year-old racing develop over the next several years. The East Coast, to me, looks like it's far ahead of the West Coast at this point in time. Last year, I was the other way around, and a lot of people, think I'm a West Coast guy because I lean west a lot of times. I'm from Pennsylvania, but a lot of folks associate me with the West Coast racing because usually in the 3-year-old scene, I like the Californians better than the East Coast horses many times. But right now, I can tell you this 2-year-old crop in California does nothing for me compared to what I'm seeing in New York and on the East Coast. I think the East Coast horses really have a big edge right now early in the season. And we'll see as they stretch out around 2 turns and get into those final Breeders' Cup preps into the juvenile, how that might change. But right now, I think the East is far ahead.
Yeah, and you make a great point about the full crop and avoiding one another because, again, September 1st was the hopeful, the race we just watched. A week later, they had the 2-year-old races down at Churchill. They also had the Arlington, Washington Futurity right in that mix as well. And so it's pretty easy for these guys to kind of pick some spots and avoid if they want to. And you wind up with, maybe 1 or 2 horses that stand out from those fields. But it's hard to know just how good they are given what's behind them. Let's shift our attention now to the West Coast because I like an opinion on American Pharoah, particularly in light of, as I said, those Vegas odds. I found it a head scratcher that coming out of the hopeful, the first Vegas odds that come out show I Spent It, the second place finisher, at 50-1 and Competitive Edge at 60-1. But maybe even more of a head scratcher, American Pharoah is the favorite at 40-1 in the early win Las Vegas Derby odds. We're going to watch American Pharoah here, the number 1 horse, getting it done in the Del Mar Futurity in only his second career start. So clearly it's a talented horse from Bob Baffert, but in the career debut ran kind of a disappointing 5th at 7-5. Follows up in a stakes race, breaking the maiden in the Del Mar Futurity, and as we're going to see, does it pretty easily. But I kind of scratched my head that they made this horse the favorite. You know, a synthetic win, the second career start, the first start wasn't anything to write home about. I found it interesting. They made this horse the favorite in the early Vegas odds.
Well, remember this, Johnny Avello is one of the best odds makers in the country, and his job is to make money for the Wynn Las Vegas Casino, not to tell you who the best horse is.
Yeah.
Geographically, Las Vegas and Southern California are very close. Most of the traffic that's going to come into the race books in in Las Vegas and play and actually bet these futures are going to be Southern California people coming to Las Vegas. There's far fewer travelers from the East Coast who are going to walk into the Wynn and place a dollar amount wagers. So if you're looking at this like as a national pari-mutuel pool, it is absolutely curious, and this horse is not the best prospect for the Kentucky Derby in my mind, not even close. But he's made the first shot of the season in winning the Del Mar Futurity. From the fan base, it's going to actually come in and place the most wagers. So I think Avello's got to protect his book a little bit there in setting this horse at a lower odds so they don't take a bath in case he does win. You can't offer this horse at 100-1, knowing everybody who just came off the Del Mar meet's going to come in and bet him at 100-1, even if he looks 100-1 to win the Kentucky Derby. So I think those odds are a little bit protective of the book. They're not indicative of this horse being the favorite to win the Kentucky Derby, and I don't see any way in the world he does. I mean, on the damn side of the pedigree, he's out of a Yankee Gentleman mare. He's bred to run 7 furlongs, and that's what he did in winning the Del Mar Futurity. The other thing that's interesting, he debuts and he runs 5th. And he's bet to 3-1 in the Del Mar Futurity off a debut 5th. There was nothing in this year's Del Mar Futurity. An absolutely terrible race. Mark Casse had the favorite with Skyway, who was 4th, and he's just okay. He's not a bad horse or anything, but the favorite for the Del Mar Futurity, there were no looking at Luckies. There were no strong horses who just looked like they were the ones to beat. American Pharoah's 5th in his debut at Santa Anita. He was beaten by a horse named Am. Am had run one time prior to that as well and ran 5th. So he got beat in his debut by a horse who did nothing at Santa Anita in his debut, and he runs 5th in that debut, shows up at Del Mar, and he's the favorite or the second favorite for the Futurity at 3-1, and he runs off and wins wire to wire. I don't think American Pharoah is any great shakes. I think by the time everything's said and done, that you know, this is a horse that will be a real factor on the Triple Crown Trail. He's bred to be a 7 furlong horse. If you want to bet him in the San Vicente next year at 7 furlongs at Santa Anita, take a future wager out on that.
And you made a good point, and I kind of wondered about that myself. I wondered if the geography of Vegas and Southern California played into those odds. I think you may be right because it's just.
Yeah. You will definitely see that even during the countdown to the Crown season. I always link to the Wynn Las Vegas odds, and when there's big movers and shakers, I'll note it. Horses like School of Hard Rock, you know, last year, got bet off the board. The Southern California horse who showed a little bit, the clockers all liked him. And so in the Vegas odds, horses like that get bet more than they should because, again, those are the people who are bringing the foot traffic into Vegas.
Yeah, very interesting, though. Again, those early odds have come out and just got some opinions there. On the 2 top 2-year-olds, well, 3 if you toss in I Spent It, East Coast and West Coast. And again, when does the first countdown to the Crown package come out? Is it the end of this year or will it be early next year?
Well, we debuted our Countdown to the Crown preseason annual last year, the big 160-page magazine that looked at 400 horses of the 2-year-olds turning over. We're going to do that again this year. We're in the process of getting the business side of that set up. So that will debut the first Friday in January every year, and so that will once again happen. We'll have the big digital magazine that will be free for everybody, and that will start then. The work begins on it really essentially now in September is when we kind of go back and do a hard review of the Saratoga and Del Mar meets. I'll work with some of my staff, with Horse Player Now, Brian Natto, Jerry Schottenkirk, Brian Spencer, guys like that, who will kind of go back and look at the meets with me as we put those together and try to review what we've seen. The process of that is started. I'm also looking ahead to the Keeneland meet, the Churchill Fall meet. These are where we're going to see some good 2-year-olds develop in Kentucky, and of course all the big Belmont Championship meets. And really, one of the strong suits for the 2-year-old crop in the last several years, it's getting stronger, is that Thanksgiving time around at Aqueduct. Those later season Aqueduct races that start to go a mile and a 16th, up to a mile and an eighth. We start to test these horses a little bit more. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile has been shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, the favorites finished first or second, I believe, 7 straight years, and the Juvenile hasn't seen, big prices in some time. That race is kind of, I think, almost taking a little bit of a backseat, I hate to say, to some of those late season races like we're seeing in the Remsen that are picking up a little more steam and importance as we turn the dial towards the 3-year-old season. Don't quote me on this exactly, but I think since Street Sense won the Derby, Hanson is the only horse out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile to win that race and even make the starting gate for the Kentucky Derby. So, that goes back to 2006 with Street Sense winning at Churchill in the fall and then coming back and winning the Derby in 2007. So since 2007, I think Hanson is the only juvenile winner to even make the starting gate in the Kentucky Derby. So those late season races are really where we want to start paying closer attention. Aqueduct, the former Hollywood, what's going to happen with those horses who usually ran in November and December at Hollywood Park. We'll be very curious to see how the West Coasters develop with a completely different menu out there this year. Del Mar's going back for a November meet. There's going to be a little Los Al meet, I think, jammed in between there and the start of Santa Anita in December. So the West Coast 2-year-olds are going to be at a really strange development this year for what we're accustomed to seeing just because of the change of the schedule.
Yeah, but as I say, I assumed you were probably starting to, as you get to late summer, you're starting to get a little bit of definition in the 2-year-old picture, so I was sure you'd start to be making check marks. All right, let's shift our attention, though, to the 3-year-olds. I applaud Parks Racing for getting the draw for the Pennsylvania Derby and the Cotillion on Monday. Gives us all a little bit of a head start. Like to get some of your opinions. And first up, let's take a look at the Pennsylvania Derby. Obviously, the return of California Chrome is going to attract a lot of attention. I thought Tapiture was exciting earlier this year, flopped in the Derby, couple of wins in sub 3-year-old stakes races since then, makes him a little bit interesting to me. Candy Boy comes in for John Sadler off a close-up second place behind Tapiture in the West Virginia Derby. Bayern off the good workout. Baffert decided to go over. Noble Moon has shown some flashes. But while we talk, I'm going to take a look at the Smarty Jones back on September 1st. We're going to watch the number 8 Protonico get it done for Todd Pletcher in here. Number 2 Classic Jock and Roll will run second. He's also going to be in the Pennsylvania Derby. But I find Protonico very, very interesting. Came out of the 3rd place in the Curlin just prior to this win in the Smarty Jones. And, of course, the Curlin produced the Travers winner, V.E. Day. So Protonico, to me, is a little bit interesting. But what are your thoughts on the Pennsylvania Derby?
Well, Protonico is a value kind of horse because he's going to be 8-1 or so, 10-1, 8-1 in the morning line. And you got Castellano and Pletcher, the big money race, impeccable pedigree, a race over the track, and a horse who really has run well in blinkers. They put the blinkers back on him for the Smarty Jones, and he got it done that day with a terrible trip. He was best, and he's going to take a big class rise here. There's no doubt about that. But when you go back to the Curlin and you mention V.E. Day, that kind of already gives you a little bit of a class barometer because we know V.E. Day, as you mentioned, went on to win the Travers. So sometimes you just look at these race listings and you say, okay, you won the restricted Curlin or was 3rd in the restricted Curlin. This is a big rise in class. And sometimes you have to kind of tap the brakes on that and say, well, who were in the running lines in those races? And you find out that, the race was V.E. Day. For instance, the Curlin, he runs 3rd to V.E. Day. In the Smarty Jones, the grade 3, he beats Classic Jock and Roll. Who do you want in a matchup, Classic Jock and Roll or V.E. Day? I mean, the harder race was the listed race, not the graded one. So Protonico is one of those kind of horses who can rise in class and make that apparent class rise on paper. and be a factor. Is he good enough to be the absolute best horse in this crop in California Chrome, in my estimation? You know, that's going to be the question. California Chrome's going to have to come back to the pack to lose this race. He is the best 3-year-old in America. I'll take him against Shared Belief if you make me pick one or the other, especially at a 1.8 mile distance. And we know he's proven to the 1.25 mile, 1.3 mile the way he ran in the Preakness. But California Chrome, I think, is really, really best at a 1.8 mile. And so the Pennsylvania Derby should be a race that is a good comeback spot. They're running in here because they're getting $200,000 in bonus money. I mean, we know that between the owner and the trainer. And that's not the worst decision in the world. The other thing that's not the worst decision is his next option is to run the Awesome again off a layoff from June to October and go hook horses like Game On Dude and that older horses on the West Coast when there's not as much money on the line. So there's $1 million purse with $200,000 in bonus money. I think he's going to get an $800,000 payday if he wins. He goes to his best distance at a 1.8 mile. He does have to travel, and will that wear him down a little bit towards the Breeders' Cup? That we'll have to assess when you get to November. But all eyes are on California Chrome on Saturday, and I think they should be. This is a good field. I mean, hats off to Parks for putting together the field that they did, because with California Chrome in there, you could very easily see this be a 4 or 5 horse field. Yeah. But they brought, CJ's Awesome in, Tapiture, Protonico, Bayern, Noble Moon, Classic Jock and Roll, Candy Boy. There's not a tomato can in that field. They're all very, proven horses. I mean, the longest shot in the race is probably going to be Classic Jock and Roll, and he's made $250,000 in just 12 starts. Noble Moon's only run 5 times and made $250,000. So these are quality 3-year-olds, especially for this kind of race. You're talking about a grade 2 late in the season, and what's left in the 3-year-old crop. Fletcher doesn't run anything in the Haskell. He doesn't run anything in the Travers. And he's got Protonico here to run the PA Derby. So even like the big barns don't have horses to come fire at you. So to get 8 in this race, and 8 of all decent quality, Sal Sinatra, the racing secretary, outdid himself with the field, I think. Yeah, it is a very, very nice addition. Intriguing return of California Chrome, and as they say, Protonico, a little bit interesting. Bayern coming east. Jeremy, got about a minute left, but I did want to touch on the Cotillion as well. Face-off between 3 contenders in the division. We did the Handicappers Report show earlier, and your colleague Brian Nadeau was in with me, and he said he had read a comment by Pletcher that he might take Stop Charging Maria and head over to the Beldame. That would be unfortunate, but still intriguing. Untappable coming out of the 5th place finish in the Haskell, and distance question marks for Sweet Reason. While we talk, we're going to go back and take a look at the August 2nd test up at Saratoga. 7 furlongs, number 7, Sweet Reason will win this one. That follows up a Grade 1 win in the Acorn. So a couple of Grade 1 wins for Sweet Reason and Leah Giramati coming into Saturday's race. But again, the question mark will be the distance for Sweet Reason in the Cotillion. What were your thoughts? Yeah, the Mount Livermore on the bottom of the pedigree tells me that that closing sprinter might be the best trip for Sweet Reason, and her past performances kind of bear that out. And when you look at Stop Shopping Maria, with a slow pace in the Black Eyed Susan, in the Coaching Club Oaks in the Alabama, is able to sit close and put horses away. She's probably one of the most improved horses I've seen this year in the 3-year-old ranks, because I didn't think much of her, and she's earned her respect going throughout. But now you're going to see a much faster pace with JoJo Warrior in there, Cassat on the rails, Sweet Reason coming out of routes. Stop Charging Maria to win this race from post 9 with a much faster pace is probably going to be an underlay. I think it probably still runs through Untappable. If she runs back to any of her previous races, she's the one to beat. And one quick note, Steve Asmussen's got Tapiture and Untappable, and the beat has kind of gone on for him. We thought the sky was falling for horse racing when Steve Asmussen had a little bit of trouble, or a lot of trouble with PETA earlier in the spring. I bet he would change places with the NFL right now. If you think we've got problems, how would you like to be the National Football League? Yeah, very good point. I like that. I hadn't thought about that. Good point. Jeremy, absolutely. We appreciate the visit as always. Again, folks can check out Night School Archive, also horseplayernow.com. But again, we appreciate the visit. We'll talk to you next week. Have fun. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks a lot. Jeremy Plonk. We'll take our next break. When we come back, it will be Rachel McLaughlin from Indiana Grand. We'll talk a little bit about their stakes last week. Also look at today's racing right after this.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night School, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Welcome back. Happy to be joined now by Rachel McLaughlin from Indiana Grand Racing. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning. How are you today?
Very good. And before we get into a little review of last week's racing and looking at this afternoon as well, I read earlier the very exciting 3-year-old Atreides headed to the Indiana Derby for Marty Wolfson. That has to be exciting.
It is going to be exciting. I heard some rumors about that, and then I also heard some rumors about Vickers in trouble coming as well. Not sure if that's true or not, but if Vicker comes, that's going to be a good one as well.
Yeah, Atreides, 3 for 3, 3 triple-digit buyer figures. He's in rarefied air. So I'm just excited to see what he does next and kind of tries to step up the class ladder a little bit. So that should be fun for the Indiana Derby. Let's go back. Speaking of stakes races, one of the things I like about Indiana Grand, occasionally sticking in those midweek stakes. And last Wednesday, there was a couple of them for state breds out at Indiana. Just wanted to take a quick look at a couple of these going back to the Merrillville last Wednesday. 6 furlongs for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. We'll watch the stretch run here. It'll be the number 10, Cactus Joe, getting it done. We talked a little bit about this race last week, and I thought Yeardley was going to be interesting with the turf to dirt move, coming back and cutting back to a sprint. Betting public agreed with me. The number 8, Yeardley, went off as the 2-1 favorite, but could only manage 3rd place. Running second was the number 9, Dreamin' Big. And I'll tell you, Rachel, Cactus Joe, 8-1 on the morning line. But given the career record, I thought 4-1 was still kind of generous. This is a horse that had not finished off the board in 6 career starts, including 3 wins. So Cactus Joe surprises a little bit. But as I say, I thought that $4-1 price, that the $10.60 win mutual, pretty good for a horse that has some talent.
Yes, and Oriana Rossi did talk to me after the race there live for the replay, after the replay, and she actually was telling me about how this filly is really just getting better with age. It's one of those horses where instead of coming out being just phenomenal in its 2-year-old campaign, this is one of those horses that has matured over the years. So definitely has been doing better, and they weren't shocked at this win at all. Oriana expected it and was really, really confident going into the race. I agree, though, 4-1. I think that was generous as well, but it was a very exciting race and was very fast times as well. I think there was only a fraction of a second off of the track record for that one. So Cactus Joe making a very exciting finish there, and as you just showed the replay, I mean, I even joked with her. I said, Oriana, it looks like you almost fell off. She goes, I did almost fall off.
Very good. And on the boys' side, a little bit later was the Brickyard 3-year-olds and up, going 6 furlongs. And this one, I wanted to pull up this race, and we'll watch the stretch run of this one. The number 8 Success in Racing will get it done as the 2-1 favorite. Underneath a couple of long shots, 15-1. Thank You Kisses, and Got Grit at 52-1 completes the triple. But again, the 2-1 favorite, Success is Racing, wins. And I did want to show this because Success is Racing, trained by Kim Hammond, who earlier this year became the all-time winningest female trainer in North America. I wonder if you're familiar with Kim at all, and you can tell us a little bit about her.
Yes, Kim is an awesome trainer, and you know what? More importantly about Kim, I think she's proven herself. I'm not going to tout her anymore. She's a great trainer, but what I really love about Kim is she's a tough lady. Like, she is no joke. And when Success is Racing won, she was so emotional. She couldn't even talk to me. She was crying, and then afterwards, after Ben talked for her, and Ben knows her really well and rides for her, you know, he got done, and it was the live interview. Then I stuck around to get, you know, a few quotes for her for our story. And she still couldn't, the only thing she could choke out was home raised. So she was just so proud and so excited that this horse was home. She raised this horse. You know, she was very excited that it was an Indiana bred and has done so well. So was just sitting chilly in third. I mean, he couldn't have gotten a better trip for the horse as well.
Oh, yeah, I didn't notice that until you brought it up, but under the breeder line, it is the Hammond name as well, so I could see why she was emotional. Now won well over a couple of $100,000 as a 4-year-old, so I could see why she was a little bit emotional. But as I say, it was a fun story to kind of follow earlier this year as she approached that record to become the all-time winningest female trainer. And I said here on the show a few times, she's a trainer that really, until that record she got close to it, I was unfamiliar with her, but it seems like she's a real lunch pail kind of trainer out there in the Midwest to put those kind of numbers up.
Oh yeah, she's you know, you say lunch pail, kind of like your bread and butter. She has a little bit of everything, and she does a really great job with all of her horses. So yeah, I was very excited for her when she won the Brickyard.
Very good. All right, let's get to this afternoon. If folks are playing Indiana Grand, what's your weather look like?
The weather is pretty nice today. It's been rainy and cloudy the last few days. We'll see what happens going into the day. It's Indiana, and I feel like it doesn't really matter what happens in the first half of the day. It could be completely different, maybe snow later. No, it's a nice day today, and honestly, it's been pretty cold, and it's supposed to heat up, and I think the high today is about 68, 70 degrees, so it's going to be a good day for racing. Horses love this weather.
Perfect. All right, let's take a look at some for today. Kicking off in the 4th, State Breds. These are fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. It's an allowance, non-winners of 2, lifetime going 5.5. What were your thoughts in the 4th?
You know, this is one of those races where it's written and there's only 7 horses in it, so it's not like a great betting race. But these are the ones where, when it's Indiana breds, and in this group specifically, I've gone a little bit outside of the favorites here to the 1 and 1A. I really like She's a Pearl. This is more of my long shot pick. I've got a couple of other ones, obviously, we're going to talk about, and they're pretty much chalk. They're really impressive, I think, lock in the other 2 races we're going to talk about. But this Indiana bred allowance, I really like She's a Pearl starting from the rail. The rail's doing pretty good, especially at sprint distance. It's not as you know, people are staying away from it. Guys are staying away from it there. The first meet, it's gotten a little bit better. This one actually just broke its maiden. And granted, both of these horses from Gary Patrick in this entry are coming from sort of the same deal here. Were dropped down to maiden optional claiming. The latter for 25, this one for 15. But I think needed the confidence boost because every race that this horse raced in really did well. This 3-year-old filly impressed me in all of her starts. But then, you know, she dropped down to maiden optional claiming 15. That's where she broke her maiden. So it is a class hike, is moving up, but I really like that it's switching. Cheyenne Patrick is actually Gary's daughter, and she went back to college. So now Cisco's riding. I really like that. Cheyenne is great, but Cisco is one of our top 5 jockeys. He's 4th in the standings right now, obviously a veteran rider and does a great job. And then also the 2 works I like off of that try in September, especially the Bullet Work. On September 12th, I like.
All right, so 8-1 on the entry, both coming out of wins, and a little bit of a price there in the 4th. Let's move on to the 5th today at Indiana Grand. That one is a maiden special weight event. Fillies and mares 3, 4, and 5 years old. They're on the turf at 5 furlongs. What did you think in the 5th?
I really like Gracie's Butterfly, and honestly, I went between the 6 and the 5 into running on this one. It was really a toss-up for me. I ended up going with the 6 just because Into Running has only ran on Poly. Now, granted, horses that run on Poly normally like the turf. I'm not counting that as a discredit to this 3-year-old filly at all, but Gracie's Butterfly has already ran on the turf, was an even 5th, heavily bet in its debut, and that was at Gulfstream, and it was a maiden special weight, 47,000. We're moving down a little bit here for this one as well, and then has 2 works to its credit in September. That was all the way back in March, so has had a string of work since then, and I think that Phil Sense has just been waiting for a good spot to put this one in, and when he puts them in, he knows that they're. I feel like he knows that they're going to win. He knows they have a really good chance. So I think Gracie's Butterfly is going to look good, and it's the second start on turf, so that always calls for a little bit of an improvement, even if it was a while ago.
Yeah, some breeding here. A beaten favorite down at Gulfstream in March in the career debut. Does look like a good spot for this one. 8th race today. We are looking at allowance non-winners of 1 other than for fillies and mares 3-year-olds and up. And in the 8th, they will go 7.5 on the grass. Nice full field in here. What were your thoughts in the 8th?
Yeah, I really like this field, and I think there's a chance for a few long shots in here. Like I do like TT's Grey Goods as a long shot. I think she hasn't been running to her ability, and Marvin Johnson owns and trains this one. So I really like Marvin, but if I had to pick one that I think is going to win, I think it's going to be hard to deny Wild Suava. I mean, when you look at his past performances and you see it hasn't been worse than 3rd since all the way back in January at Tampa. This horse just does really well. Granted, it has been in starters. I think found its niche in those starter handicaps and such. Now is moving to this 3-year-old allowance, but I don't think that this is too tough a company. I feel like at Parks, at Churchill, at Keeneland, that this horse has been running at some pretty tough company in those starters. So I think it fits in here in this 3-year-old allowance in Indiana.
And I was asking last week, maybe you know, that this horse last race in the Florence Henderson, is that the Florence Henderson from the Brady Bunch?
Yeah, it is. It's named after the Florence Henderson because she's from Indiana.
Oh, that's what I wondered. Yeah, sure. Down in Florida, they run the Shirley Jones, so you have the face-off from the TV moms there for the stakes races. Very good.
Exactly, and apparently it either was that day or that week, Peter Lurie told me that Florence sang the national anthem at a Dodgers game.
Oh, there you go. Well, all right. Florence Henderson. Yeah, again, the mom on the Brady Bunch. All right. Rachel, we absolutely appreciate the visit this afternoon. Wish you good luck, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Rachel McLaughlin from Indiana Grand. That's going to bring us to the end of Racing Across America for this Wednesday. A little bit earlier, Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com, and Night School. We're here every morning from 10 until 11 a.m. A little bit earlier, of course, was the Handicappers Award. Brian Nadeau and I looked at Delaware and Belmont for today. Hopefully we gave you some good information on that show and tied some more good information in just in this past hour. So enjoy the races. Let's cash a few tickets. We'll see you again tomorrow.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.